Hey, how's it going? Today I'm talking about don't run a half marathon to train for a half marathon, or don't run a 5K to train for a 5K. Okay, I just saw on Facebook that somebody is so excited to gear up for Springtime Surprise 2026 5K, and they started training for it now by doing a 5K over the weekend. I love the enthusiasm, absolutely love it. However, doing a 5K every weekend, a couple of days a week, every day is just not the way to train for a 5K. What will end up happening is this person will get burnt out or injured, and neither of those things lead to a happy starting line. So I I see this often, and it's to no fault of their own. The runners don't know what to do. They're not elite runners, and they haven't been even recreational runners in the past. I haven't been a recreational runner in the past. I never did track. I never did cross country. I didn't do running sports. So growing up, I didn't have a coach telling me how to train for running races. I figured it out on my own in the beginning. And did I do everything right? Absolutely not. But that was 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago now. And I learned from my mistakes. And I would love for you to learn from my mistakes. One mistake I did not make was I never ran race distance to train for race distance. And I certainly didn't run it every weekend. There is a running coach who hosts a podcast, and honestly, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the podcast right now. I listened to it years ago, and she talked about how the very first half marathon she ran, long before she was a running coach, long before she knew what she was doing, she admits, she used to just run a half marathon every weekend in order to train for the half marathon that she was training for. And she says, in retrospect, don't do it. Learn from my mistakes and don't do that thing. And I agree. Don't do that. It ends up that you exhaust yourself and don't don't actually make the gains that you're hoping to make. So I talk about this a couple of different ways. In all other sports, you're not doing the end result, the goal, every single time you practice, right? Soccer. I talk about soccer a lot. I was a big soccer player growing up and through college. To to practice for a soccer game, you don't just go and play 90 minutes. Now, of course, it's 11v11, it's for 90 minutes. If it's 6v6, it's definitely less than that. But let's just say we're doing 11v11. We're teenagers, college people, even professional athletes. They're not going and playing 90 minutes of soccer every time they go to practice in order to get ready for that game. They do drills, they practice dribbling and foot skills, finesse, dribbling, keeping the ball close to them. And they practice sprinting and they practice set plays and they do little scrimmages, 3-on-3 aside, to practice a little bit of that game like situation. But they're not playing 11v11 for 90 minutes. Most teams aren't even big enough to do 11v11, let alone for 5 minutes at all, just doing it at all. But they structure it this way so that they work on little bits and pieces here and there. Same thing with running your race. Even if you aren't an elite runner, you're not looking to get a sub 2 hour half marathon, sub hour and a half marathon, sub 3 hour full marathon. Even if you aren't going to be getting those times and you are going to be doing 3.5 or 4 hour half marathon or 6 or 7 hour full marathon, doing the same distance over and over and over again is not the recipe for you. It is a recipe for burnout and for injury. It's not a recipe to cross the finish line without feeling broken. Instead, divide up into different workouts. So, if you follow any of my free training plans, you know I recommend 2 cross training days, 2 short speed workouts, and 1 long run. That's because we are breaking up the different tasks, so to speak. I don't know another better word for that. But we have the long run to build time on your feet, longevity. Get your body used to being on your feet for that length of time and progressively adding more and more each week, 10% to be exact. Then we have cross training. Cross training is another cardiovascular activity to build up your heart and your lung function so that you can breathe easier. You're not huffing and puffing, and you don't feel like your heart is beating out of your chest when you cross the finish line. It builds up your cardiovascular endurance so that you can go the distance, but it's a different activity. So you're not doing repetitive 1 foot after the other running over and over and over again. You're doing something like the elliptical or the Peloton bike or rowing or swimming, where that works your heart and your lungs hard, mimicking what you would be doing when you're running without actually running. And then you have short speed workout days to build up your speed, to make yourself faster so that you can cross the finish line without getting swept. But those are in distinct, specific workouts. The speed workouts are 30 or 45 minutes long, depending on what race you're training for. Are you training for a 10K, a half marathon, 2-course challenge, marathon, goofy, dopey? They're going to be different distances because they need to they are going to be different times because you're training for different distances and you need to get yourself faster for the different distances. But you're not trying to go the same distance on your long run every week and trying to go faster every week, and you're not doing a 5K over and over and over again. You're not doing a half marathon over and over and over again. Another example, if you have ever followed Greek mythology, there is the story of Milo. And Milo, I don't remember the exact full story, but Milo has to bring a full grown pig up a mountain in order to achieve something for his family. So Milo has 2 options. He can try and bring this full grown pig up the mountain every single day to be able to do it by the deadline. Or Milo can start with a baby piglet and take that baby piglet up the mountain every single day. Which one sounds easier? Which one sounds more realistic? Carrying a full grown, hundreds of pounds, full grown pig up a mountain every day until the deadline, hoping that you can do it by that deadline, and probably he would get unmotivated and stop doing it partway through? Or does it sound easier to take that baby piglet that may weigh 1 pound, take that baby piglet up the mountain every single day, and maybe every single day he's gaining half a pound, but you're also gaining strength so that you can continue to carry that same piglet without even noticing that he really weighs much more? That one sounds easier, better, more enjoyable, as opposed to running yourself into the ground. I highly recommend don't run the race distance to train for your race in any sense of it. Don't run it weekly, don't run it daily, and don't even include it in your training. My free training plans, the max amount that you go for running when you're doing the half marathon, the 2-course challenge, goofy, marathon, dopey, is about 70% of race distance. So for a half marathon or 2-course challenge, that's 10 miles because the max distance you're going is 13.1 miles. Full marathon, goofy, dopey, the max you're running to is 20 miles. When you're training for that long distance marathon, 26.2 miles. You don't have to even go the full distance. I recommend going so slow that it takes you the same amount of time that it will take you on race day. So when I ran the half marathon and was training for the half marathon at Disney Chills and Thrills Halloween weekend, I ran 10 miles and I made it take me 3 hours because I knew my half marathon was going to take me about 3 hours. And it did. It took me 3 hours and about 5 minutes. Same thing for a full marathon. Run those 20 miles, make it take the 6.5, 7.5 hours that you think race day marathon will take you. You build longevity, get your body used to being on your feet for that length of time without having burnt yourself out, gotten injured, lost your motivation. Okay, so now that I have shared that story, I am going to do a little life update. I normally don't do these. If you like me sharing a little bit about my life on these podcast episodes, let me know over on Instagram, either Running to the Castle podcast on Instagram or runDisney DPT. I'd be happy to share if I know that you enjoy this. But I want to thank you for your patience. I took an unexpected hiatus from posting my podcast episodes. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have noticed that I have moved. I still live in Las Vegas. We moved to a different home still in Las Vegas. And moving has just been a big to do. And I had done all of the planning. And, here's one thing, you can do all of the planning, and sometimes things still don't go as planned. I had planned out, I had pre recorded weeks worth of podcast episodes. This is actually the first podcast episode that I am recording in about 2 months. I started recording episodes beginning of August in preparation for my Run Disney race in the beginning of September and through my move. And I had a delay because I just didn't get a time to sit down to edit some of those podcast episodes. So there was an unexpected 2-week hiatus from posting podcast episodes. I appreciate you having the patience and waiting for the next episodes to come out. We should be back on schedule 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, for podcast episodes. I'm always taking recommendations and questions to answer for this podcast, so you can always let me know. And then after we moved, we're still kind of in the process of moving, but we had my father-in-law, who's 90 years old, stay with us for 11 days because my husband's mom, my father-in-law's wife, she went on a very well-deserved vacation, and father-in-law needed to stay with someone. So he came and stayed with us. So it has just been hectic. We have had some help. My sister came and helped me for a month. She has gone back home now. We had the help and it was still hectic. So things should go swimmingly now, back on track. But that was just a little life update. You will notice that my background in my videos is going to be different because I have a new setup. Levi loves sitting in this chair behind me and just hanging out. And we are gonna be smooth sailing. I'm putting it out into the world now with these podcast episodes coming up. So thank you so much. As always, ask me questions, Run Disney DPT on Instagram, or the new podcast specific Instagram profile, Running to the Castle podcast. I would love to hear your feedback and any questions you have.